Have you ever found yourself wrestling with how, ancient, really profound wisdom can possibly speak to the speed and complexity of our modern world? Or maybe how spiritual truths, which sometimes feel kind of exclusive or hard to grasp, could be made truly accessible, like for everyone, no matter their background?
Yeah, that's a big question.
Well, today we're taking a deep dive into exactly that. We're exploring this really powerful connection between timeless insights from sacred texts and the revolutionary work of a 19th century visionary, a figure who literally built bridges between those two worlds.
And what we have before us is it's a truly fascinating stack of sources that lets us map this journey out.
Hmm.
So first, we're going to extract some core principles from the Srimad Bhagavatam,
Right.
which a foundational scripture often called the cream of Vedic knowledge. It's full of divine pastimes, the science of devotion, really rich stuff. And specifically, we'll zero in on verses 3.3.5 to 6. These reveal the compassionate purpose behind divine intervention and also the astonishing, really universal power of devotion.
And then we'll unpack the remarkable life of Bhaktivinoda Thakura. He's often celebrated as the seventh Goswami.
Hmm.
And this was a man who didn't just understand these profound spiritual truths, but he actively reshaped how the world could access them.
Yeah, he put it into action.
Exactly. So our mission today is to pull out the most important nuggets of knowledge, the ones that bridge that gap between, let's say, divine grandeur and our actual daily lives. We want to give you a shortcut to understanding how these ideas aren't just historically significant, but maybe more relevant now than ever.
Sounds like a plan.
So let's open up these ancient sources then. The Srimad Bhagavatam, specifically, verses 3.3, 3.56, they start by revealing this profound truth about divine intervention and the purpose of a particular incarnation of the Lord. What's the core message there?
Well, what's fascinating is that the Supreme Lord is described as assuming a body specifically, and the text says, in order to diminish the sinful activities of the fallen and to enrich their knowledge in devotion and liberation.
Okay, so a rescue mission, almost.
Kind of, yeah. He appears to distribute transcendental knowledge, or atmapatha, which means the path of the soul to his dependents. And this is shown through various incarnations, like the boar incarnation, or in this specific context we're looking at, by Kapila.
And Kapila wasn't just any figure, was he? He was a great sage.
Precisely. Kapila is really significant because he appears specifically to teach the profound philosophy of Sotya, and he explained this path of devotion directly to his own mother, Devahuti.
Wow.
So you see, it's not just about cosmic power or, grand displays. It's a deeply compassionate mission.
Yeah.
It's about directly guiding and enlightening misguided souls through very personal instruction.
Okay, that makes sense. But what about the next verse? You said that's where things get really groundbreaking about accessibility. What makes its message so, well, radical, even for back then?
Oh, yeah. Text 6. It makes this truly revolutionary declaration. It says, let me get the gist, to say nothing of the spiritual advancement of persons who see the Supreme Person face to face. Okay, so that's already high level.
Right.
Even a person born in a family considered the lowest of the low. And the text traditionally uses the term dog eaters to signify this.
Which is a shocking term.
Absolutely shocking for the time. Even that person, it says, immediately becomes eligible to perform Vedic sacrifices if he once utters the holy name of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or chants about him, hears about his pastimes, offers him obeisances, or even remembers him.
A dog eater. I mean, in ancient India, that phrase alone would have it completely upends the social hierarchy of the time. It just instantly highlights the incredible, almost unthinkable reach of this spiritual practice. Can you put that into perspective? How revolutionary was that statement? And how does it challenge maybe our own hidden ideas about who's eligible for spiritual life today?
You're absolutely right to focus on that. In a society that was deeply, deeply stratified by the Varna system, where your eligibility for spiritual practices like Vedic sacrifices was strictly determined by birth.
Right, by your family line.
Exactly. And by extensive, often complicated purificatory rites. This verse just completely turns their whole paradigm upside down. The term dog eater, or Shivapaka, it denoted someone completely outside the traditional social structure, considered ritually impure, at the absolute bottom.
Okay.
But the key word here is sadhya. It means immediately.
Immediately.
Not gradually, not after a lifetime, immediately. It highlights immediate purification. It states that such a person becomes as good as the most learned Brahmana, that's the highest intellectual and priestly class, and eligible to perform sacred Vedic rituals. instantly.
So it's not a gradual climb up the ladder, not something that takes generations of, improving your karma or something.
Not according to this verse. It's instantaneous. And Shuddhara Swami, who was a very revered 15th century commentator on the Bhagavatam, he remarks on this specifically. He says, one can immediately become eligible to perform Vedic sacrifices and becomes as respectable as a most learned Brahmin.
Wow.
It makes it crystal clear. Devotional acts, if they're performed sincerely and without offense, man, that's an important qualifier. They just transcend all social barriers, all historical conditions. The purification is considered so complete, it just negates everything that came before.
So what's the takeaway for us then?
Well, for us today, it's this incredibly powerful reminder that spiritual advancement isn't about your pedigree, it's not about your wealth or even how smart you are. It's about the sincerity of your devotion. It basically democratizes the whole spiritual path.
So this ancient text is telling us the path to perfection, to liberation. It isn't locked away for a select few born into the right families. It's universally available, just through simple, pure devotion. That's genuinely liberating.
It really is.
But okay, how does a concept like that, so profound, even revolutionary, actually take root? How does it survive centuries of societal change and then, boldly reemerge to transform the world? How does it get from this ancient text to being a lived experience for people?
Right. That's the crucial link.
And that's exactly where we turn to the incredible life of this 19th century giant, Bhaktivinoda Thakura.
The bridge builder.
Yeah. This idea of accessible perfection, of making deep spiritual truth available to absolutely everyone, that was something Bhaktivinoda Thakura didn't just understand intellectually. He spent his life actively reviving it and spreading it. We're talking about a true polymath here. He was a top high court judge under the British Raj.
A demanding job.
Hugely demanding. A devoted family man. He had 10 or 11 children.
Wow.
And on top of all that, an incredibly influential spiritual author and philosopher.
And what's truly remarkable about him, maybe even hard to fathom, is his daily schedule. It's often described as superhuman.
Okay, lay it on us.
We're talking only about 3 hours of sleep per night.
3 hours.
3 hours. Then 8.5 hours dedicated purely to his prolific writing.
8.5 hours writing.
Every day.
Oh, yeah.
Plus 4.5 hours for intense personal spiritual practice, chanting, study, meditation. And then 6 hours for his demanding government work as a magistrate.
I genuinely don't understand how that's possible. It really puts my own busy days into stark perspective.
Doesn't it? But his life powerfully demonstrates that a deep, productive spiritual life is absolutely possible within the world, not separate from it. It completely challenges that old idea that you have to renounce everything and go live in a cave to be truly spiritual.
Right. He lived right in the thick of it. And he lived during a really interesting kind of tumultuous period, didn't he? The Bengal Renaissance.
Exactly. A time of huge intellectual ferment, but also tension. You had Western rationalism, science, and very active Christian missionary work, intensely challenging ancient Hindu traditions and beliefs. A lot of Indian intellectuals felt caught, between these worlds.
So how did Bhaktivinoda Thakura navigate that apparent clash between faith and reason? Did he pick a side?
No, and that's what's so brilliant. He offered a really powerful synthesis instead. He used this wonderful metaphor. When the stream of reason joins the river of ancient faith, the stagnant mosses of unwanted illusions are swept away.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. He taught a principle called Yukta Vairagya.
Yukta Vairagya. What does that mean?
It means essentially connected detachment or practical renunciation, using material things like reason, like science, like your job, your administrative skills, using them in service of the spiritual goal, rather than just rejecting them wholesale as illusions or distractions. He saw reason and faith as having different but complementary roles, both valuable tools if you understand how to use them.
That makes spirituality feel so much more practical, doesn't it? Integrated with modern life. Less about conflict, more about finding the connection. But, in a world that often forces us to choose sides, how practical was his Yukta Vairagya for the average person back then? Or even for us now, trying to balance everything?
That's a really crucial point. And I think he showed it was intensely practical, precisely because it didn't ask you to just drop your life.
Okay.
Instead, it gave you a framework to spiritualize the duties you already had. So, for instance, he used his position as a judge to uphold justice, which he saw as a divine principle. He used his writing skills, honed through Western education, to explain intricate spiritual philosophy in ways that educated Bengalis and even Westerners could grasp.
So turning the material into a spiritual offering?
Exactly. You transform it by its connection to the divine purpose. And this foundational approach, this kind of synthesis, it informed his perspective on other really challenging topics too, like how to view different major world religions.
Ah, interesting. How did he approach that?
He took a remarkably broad-minded stance for his time. He saw different faiths not as contradictory or competing, but he used the analogy, like people viewing a single mountain peak from various locations.
That's a beautiful way to put it. So did he teach actual respect for these other paths?
Absolutely. Deep respect. He even suggested that if someone enters, say, a church or a mosque, they should think, here is my own beloved, my own worshipable Lord, who is manifested in a form different from the one which I am familiar with.
That's quite radical.
It really was. And he was even the first in his specific Vaishnava tradition to formally recognize figures like Jesus and Muhammad as Shaktavesha avatars.
Which means
Empowered incarnations. Souls specifically empowered by God to deliver messages suitable for their particular time, place, and audience.
Okay, so beyond bridging these gaps between external faiths, how did he apply this inclusive vision within Hinduism itself? Did he have a similar progressive way of looking at the existing worship practices, maybe for people already following different Hindu deities?
He did, yes, and it was quite brilliant. He looked at the traditional system of Panchapasana, that's the worship of 5 main deities, Surya, the sun god, Ganesha, Durga, Shiva, and Vishnu. And he framed it not as separate competing paths that were eternally distinct.
Which is how some might see it.
Right. But he saw them as progressive stages, developmental steps towards understanding the divine more and more fully. He taught that these practices could naturally culminate in Vaishnavism, the worship of Vishnu or Krishna, which he felt offered the most personal and intimate conception of God.
Okay.
But here's a really clever part. He strategically and profoundly included Christianity and Islam in that highest category as well.
Why?
Because they also emphasize a personal conception of God. So he created this incredibly encompassing spiritual framework that could make sense of and give respect to almost every major path.
So he wasn't just doing this intellectual synthesis, connecting reason and faith or different religions.
Yeah.
He was also mapping out an emotional journey towards the divine.
Exactly. That's a great way to put it. Beyond the intellectual frameworks and the practical methods, Bhaktivinoda deeply understood that the spiritual journey is fundamentally emotional. And he actually provided this fascinating roadmap for our inner experience, detailing what he called the rasas.
Rasas, like spiritual tastes or relationships.
Precisely. Spiritual moods or flavors of relationship with the divine. He outlined a progression, starting from a peaceful, somewhat passive state called Shantarasa, then moving to the mood of a servant, Dasya Rasa, and he saw figures like Moses or Muhammad as exemplifying this respectful servitude.
Okay.
Then there's friendship, Shakya Rasa, like the relationship between Arjuna and Krishna. Then parental love, Vatsalya Rasa, like Mother Yashoda's love for the child Krishna. And finally, the pinnacle, the most intimate relationship, Madhurya Rasa, or conjugal love.
Wow. So what's the point of mapping these out for us? Why did he detail these specific rasas?
Well, this framework offers us a really profound way to understand the different depths and nuances of our own spiritual feelings and aspirations. It's like a guide for cultivating a deeper, more personal, more intimate relationship with the divine. It shows that spiritual love isn't just one thing. It has all these beautiful expressions.
And this highest one, Madhurya Rasa.
He believed this Madhurya Rasa, this conjugal intimacy, was like a supremely delicious wine. He felt it was revealed most fully by the 15th century Saint Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and that this highest taste was destined to emanate from India and eventually spread all over the globe.
And he wasn't just, theorizing about all this stuff in an ivory tower. His literary output was just staggering, wasn't it? You mentioned almost 100 books. What about Jaiva Dharma? You said that's considered a cornerstone?
What Jaiva Dharma is. It's a masterpiece. It's a philosophical novel written as a dialogue that masterfully distills the entire essence of the Vedic understanding, the whole philosophy of Vaishnavism, into this engaging narrative. It makes incredibly complex theology feel accessible and alive. It truly is a cornerstone text for understanding his teachings.
Amazing.
And he was such a pioneer, really thinking globally. Get this. He sent one of his English books, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, His Life and Precepts, which had a substantial 47-page English introduction explaining everything. He sent it to universities in the West McGill in Canada, libraries in Australia way back in 1896.
1896. That's incredibly forward-thinking for the time.
Absolutely radical. He clearly had this vision of these teachings reaching far beyond India.
He also innovated practical methods for spreading the teachings, right? What was the Namahata?
The Namahata literally translates to marketplace of the holy name. It was his brilliant, organized system for taking the practice of chanting the holy names out to the common people, often going door to door, setting up preaching centers in villages and towns. It was grassroots spiritual outreach.
Like a spiritual market stall.
Exactly, bringing the goods directly to the people. And his core message was often summarized very simply: compassion for all living beings expressed through chanting God's names. But he always emphasized sincere chanting. He warned very strongly against what he identified as the 10 offenses against the holy name.
Okay, 10 offenses. Can you give us a couple of examples? What should people avoid?
Sure. Well, these are seen as fundamental pitfalls that prevent the chanting from having its full effect. So, for example, one offense is to disrespect genuine spiritual teachers or scriptures or great devotees who carry the message. Another major one is to think you can deliberately commit sinful acts and then just use chanting like spiritual soap to wash it away later.
Ah, like a loophole.
Exactly. Treating the holy name as a license to misbehave. He taught that sincerity, humility, and a genuine desire for purification were absolutely paramount. The attitude matters immensely.
That makes sense. And his poetry, too, like that piece, O Vaishnava Soul, it speaks so direct to us even now. It's such a powerful critique of just living for materialism and a real call to live with purpose. Some of those lines really stick with you.
They really do.
Like, the flesh is not our own, alas, the mortal frame a chain, the soul confined for former wrongs should try to rise again, or the famous advice, forget the past that sleeps and ne'er the future dream at all, but act in times that are with thee, in progress thee shall call.
Such practical wisdom. Be present, act now.
Yeah. And the poem ends with this beautiful prayer for the soul to find eternal peace and love in Vrindavan, the spiritual world, with love being the chanting charms. It's beautifully profound, isn't it?
It truly is. And his vision, it stretched so far beyond his own lifetime. He actually made 3 really astounding predictions about the global spread of these teachings.
Predictions. Okay, I'm intrigued. What were they?
Okay, first, he predicted that a great personality, a powerful teacher, would soon appear and travel all over the world, spreading the specific teachings of Lord Chaitanya globally.
Wow, okay, prediction 1.
Second, he predicted that Harinama Sankirtana, that's the congregational chanting of the holy names, would spread everywhere. And he specifically mentioned people from places like America, England, France, Germany, Russia, chanting Hare Krishna together,
Yeah.
playing traditional Indian instruments like karatalas, those hand cymbals, and mridangos, the clay drums.
He named those countries back in the late 1800s.
He did. And third, perhaps the most specific and visual prediction,
That.
fair-skinned foreigners would come to Sri Mayapur Dhamma, which is Lord Chaitanya's birthplace in Bengal,
Right.
and they would chant Jaya Sekhi Nandana, which means all glories to the son of Mother Sasi, referring to Chaitanya. They would chant this together, side by side, with the Bengali Vaishnavas.
Okay, those are some seriously specific predictions, and did they come true?
Uncannily so.
Mhm.
It's actually quite remarkable. In 1896, the very same year, Bhaktivinoda Thakura sent his book overseas.
Yeah.
A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada was born.
No way.
Yes, and it was Prabhupada who, decades later, founded ISKCON, the Hare Krishna movement, traveled to America in 1965, and literally fulfilled those prophecies. He brought the chanting and the teachings to the West,
To America, England, Russia.
all those places. And then, crucially, he brought his Western disciples back to India, specifically to Mayapur. There are documented reports and photos, for instance, from a large festival in Mayapur in 1986, showing thousands of these fair-skinned foreigners
Just as he described.
chanting Jaya Sakinandana, shoulder to shoulder with the Bengali Vaishnavas. Exactly as Bhaktivinoda Thakura had predicted almost a century earlier. It's like witnessing history unfold precisely from a prophetic blueprint.
That's actually mind-blowing. The accuracy is just incredible.
It's extraordinary evidence, isn't it? Evidence of the potency of his spiritual vision, but also, I think, crucially, of his profound compassion. That compassion seems to be the engine driving everything he did. This deep, driving desire to ease the suffering of souls in this world, and even, as the text describe it, to relieve the Lord's own anxiety seeing that suffering. His mercy expressed through his teachings, his life, his predictions. It literally built a pathway for global spiritual transformation.
Wow. So bringing this all together, what does this mean for you, for the listener, trying to navigate our often chaotic world? A world that constantly demands your attention, your energy, sometimes feels like it demands your sanity. Bhaktivinoda Thakura's life, his example as a guru grahasta, a spiritual guide who was also a householder living in the world, that feels like a really powerful and frankly, inspiring model.
It absolutely is.
Yeah.
His example shows so profoundly that a deep, meaningful, productive spiritual life isn't about retreating from the world, abandoning your responsibilities. It's actually about engaging with the world differently.
How so?
You can sanctify your responsibilities, your work, your family life, your studies. You can see them as part of Krishna's world, as he might put it. How? By giving up harmful, sinful activities and by consciously offering the results of your actions, your energy, back to the divine, back to Krishna. It's fundamentally about living a pure lifestyle centered on compassion and, of course, the practice of chanting the holy names.
He offered a really simple but incredibly profound call to action, didn't he? Something that feels just as relevant today. It's summarized in his own words. Chant Krishna, worship Krishna, and teach others about Krishna.
That's the essence of it.
So what does that look like practically? It means striving to chant Krishna's name sincerely, trying to avoid those offenses we talked about. It means living a lifestyle centered on compassion for all beings. And maybe, for some, it also means becoming an advocate, a distributor of this spiritual knowledge, just like he envisioned with his Namahata, his marketplace of the holy name, sharing what you found valuable.
And if we connect this right back to the beginning, to that ancient wisdom from the Srimad Bhagavatam, that spiritual potency we discussed, the power of the holy name to purify and elevate anyone immediately. It's not just some abstract theological concept from long ago. It's a living, breathing tradition. And it was made accessible, understandable, and relevant for the modern age by visionaries like Bhaktivinoda Thakur. He didn't just explain the ancient maps. He built the roads and bridges that paved the way for a genuine global spiritual transformation. A transformation that you could argue is still unfolding today.
So, inspired by this deep dive, by this journey from ancient scripture to modern accessibility, maybe the question for you is, what part of that journey, what aspect of that quest for a deeper connection might you feel drawn to explore in your own life, starting today?